I have a message on my computer that says that we're now live on YouTube, so I guess we will call the meeting to order. I'll remind council that to please disclose of any pecuniary interests at the appropriate time. And we will go to the minutes of the previous council meeting of October 5th. Do we have a mover and a seconder to receive and file those minutes? Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any errors or omissions? Questions on those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of receiving and filing those. That is carried. Thank you. We'll go to scheduled meetings and events. I don't think that there's anything really standing out there. Anybody who's interested in those virtual meetings or conferences can let staff know. I'm sure that you've received some emails about those. They are different, but the information is still useful. I have participated in one, and even the, yes, Councillor Morris.
Is the Good Roads Conference virtual or reality?
It's a good question. I don't know.
It doesn't say it on there. That's why I wondered.
Great question, Councillor Morris. I believe it is virtual, scheduled for February.
I would imagine it will be,
Yeah.
but hopefully we'll get past that and be able to meet again in person. It isn't the same. The information is good, but it isn't the same. And you do get some good meetings with ministers. That is still a value there. So it's worth attending if you have the time. So we'll go on to councillors' commitments and dates. Does anybody have any dates to add to the list? Seeing none, we're going to go around the screen here, starting with Councillor Jerry Westgate. Do you have anything for council today?
I have nothing for today.
Okay, Councillor White.
Nothing for today.
All right, Councillor Morris.
A couple of things. I've been asked if we have an update on the natural gas going to Work Village.
Amanda, do you want to address that?
Sure. Thanks, Councillor Morris. So to my knowledge, no, there has been no update received at all in follow-up to our most recent one, where I think, did we have a delegation most recently? Yeah, nothing yet. We can certainly follow up though and ask the question.
Well, I thought it was supposed to be like this fall, when we had that update early in the year, but I could be mistaken. And it's definitely not going to happening this fall right now. The other thing I had, Jackie, is I noticed it. The Watford sign by the cemetery, it's gone into its disco mode again.
Yes, I noticed that the other night too. I was going to mention it to Amanda tomorrow at her meeting. Yeah, it just is, it's flickering. Thank you for that. I forgot about that. And Councillor Mitchell, do you have anything for us today?
Nothing today, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. The one thing I have is that Warwick Township is going to be participating in the Neighbor to Neighbor food drive, which is across the rural part of Lambton County, and it's a food drive modeled after the highly successful Miracle in Chatham, Kent, and will be held in Petrolia, Wyoming, Kamalaki Forest, Grand Bend, Thedford, Arkona, Watford, Warwick Village, Brook Alvingston, Oil Springs, Oil City, Enniskillen, and Don Euphemia. And community leaders have organized each local food drive and are helping to direct the donations to food security programs like food banks and school food programs. So it's not all going to the food bank, but will be going to like Christmas for everyone and different programs like that. And they're working with public health to have guidelines for all the volunteers, minimizing direct contact by picking up donations at the door or taking the donations from the trunks of cars at the depots. And they're hoping to have a lot of participation. This is going to be held on November 7th. And they are asking our municipality to consider allowing the group to use the Centennial Hall as a temporary depot and no more than 5 people will be in the hall at one time, with volunteers taking donations from people at the door and bringing them inside. All will be masked and gloved inside. Hand sanitizer will be available. So Amanda, do you have an update on that as well?
Yes, just on the program, I absolutely do. So Mayor Bumbas, we were, as staff, also contacted by the Neighbor to Neighbor program and informed that both the Watford Food Bank and the Optimist Club will be assisting in coordinating local collections and drop-offs. I can also confirm that we've agreed that the Warwick Township office, as well as the Warwick fire station, be used as exterior drop-off locations. So people there will be bins or something set up outside. So that's great. We also have promotional materials and we'll be including them on our website and social media and in our public facilities. When it comes to the Centennial Hall request, I did speak with one of the contacts for the program today, or email correspondent, and there was a request made for Centennial Hall. I did ask a little bit more information about the size, amount of space that they would need and the duration that they would need it for, considering we are still taking private rentals in our halls, including Centennial Hall. So while they're few and far between, they are still permitted. So I was told that they were hoping that they'd be collecting quite a bit of donations, and that they would request to use the Centennial Hall basically bar area, so the cement pad for storage. They're looking for something large that is ideally on the first floor. I did ask back a question about, well, we are accommodating other rentals at this time, so do you know or is it possible to partner with the food bank or someone else? And they said that A, it may not be big enough based on the volume they're hoping for, and B, that since it's not related to to the Watford, it's supporting the Watford Food Bank, it's also supporting other causes. So they weren't so sure that partnering with one might send the wrong message. So that's the information I have. And I'm just scrolling through now in terms of duration. I think they said about a week.
Oh,
So that's the information I have so far, Mayor Rumbos.
Okay, and
Oh, sorry, about a month.
a month.
For a heated municipal building to store the food for about a month. A volume perhaps as big as the cement floor pad at Centennial Hall.
And when do they need to know by, Amanda? Do you know?
I didn't know that. I know they're just trying to sort out all their logistics, but I wasn't provided a deadline. They do know that the request was coming through to council today, so I'm sure that they would expect me to touch base with them tomorrow.
What the other rentals do we have right now? Do you know,
I don't know. I didn't ask Teresa in advance if she knew, but I wonder if she may have an idea of the volume. Certainly the Gun Club is a regular user, but go ahead, Teresa, if you wouldn't mind.
So as Amanda said, the Gun Club would be a regular user, and they have Mondays as their day. And because of gathering limits, provincial gathering limits, we pushed everything we could into the Watford Arena because it needs to be staffed. But should those gathering limits change, we would revise that so that we could take more rentals. And that's all dependent again on the province.
so we're looking at a week or two away the chances of the provincial government increasing the gathering limits, I think, are very slim. But what does council think about this idea? I don't see the gun club being a problem with this, like, being used, but
If they used just the cement pad area and we did get a rental, the whole main floor is available and they can only have, if it was supervised, 50 anyway. So I don't think we need the cement pad area as long as they kept the walkway to the bar open, for an example. That's just my opinion.
depends on what the rental's for, I suppose. I can't see us getting a wedding or any kind of rental like that anytime soon.
We usually have a few Christmas parties and stuff this time of year.
Right.
And the volume, to that point, Councillor Westgate, just isn't the same at this time. But of course, being able to host events of 50 or more with a staff present does leave the opportunity for the booking of, say, a funeral gathering or something larger that if we had a request for, typically we would accommodate. We do, though, have also Warwick Hall or the other area, but it's possible that we would have a request, but unknown.
We would need a motion from council to allow this to go forward, would we not, Amanda?
It depends. So one is we haven't talked about cost. So if council wish to waive the fees, typically there is an application for that process, but it is always at council's discretion. So you could certainly approve a resolution to allow the free use for this program. The other options you could look at would be directing myself and Teresa to work with the Neighbor to Neighbor program and identify some other options, or if this is the best option, we're here to follow council's direction.
A month is a long time. But they need it for the full month, you think, Amanda?
So Councillor Morris, I've only had one email correspondence on the timeline so far, and it did say about a month. So
I think possibly because they're wanting to use the space to get it ready for the Christmas program, maybe, or I'm
perhaps
not
they didn't provide
100%
that
sure.
detail to me.
I'd like to see help them out. I still think when you can only have 50 in there maximum with a supervised visit, the main floor would be lots of room in the Centennial Hall.
Conversely, you can only have 10 without supervision.
That's
So
right.
they'd have to keep to their limits.
Yeah.
No, what I meant, Amanda, was if we rented it out for a funeral, for an example, and we supervised it, the most we would have is 50 anyway. And there'd be lots of room on the main floor, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I believe our policy does allow for health-related issues or uses. Would this qualify for that, for free use for health?
So as I'm not the usual person who applies that policy, I might defer that question to Teresa for comment.
So with my familiarity with the policy, I think it could be applied. There are some specific examples that are in the application that says like, or in our policies that say like public health, like there are specific organizations. But I think we could apply it to it.
I would think that would be to the discretion of council.
Well, I think we should work with them. I'll make a motion that we give them the space for up to 4 weeks or 3 weeks.
I second the motion.
Support that.
Okay. Okay,
Is that free of
Any other-
charge, Councillor Westgate?
Yes,
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah.
okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of that motion? Oh, Teresa wants clarification on the timeline, I think.
No, just a clarification, and I apologize, Amanda. I don't, does it include perishable items that would need refrigeration and freezing?
No, so they're looking to all non-perishable items. They just don't want to leave it outside
Yeah.
in the cold and subject to the elements.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think like you wouldn't want it to snow or rain on any of that, so. Okay, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, Council. I'm sure that all the recipients of that will be very appreciative. And hopefully it will be a really well responded to program. All right, we are going to move on to staff items and a verbal report from Amanda on the procedural bylaw update and consolidation.
Thank you, Mayor Roundbouts. I just wanted to update Council on a project of procedural bylaw review. So as you may recall, at one of our more recent meetings, I was directed to come back to Council with some potential procedural bylaw amendments to allow individual councillor participation electronically when we're no longer in a state of emergency. So while working on research to support that, I've also come across a few other procedural bylaw amendments that I would recommend. And as a result of some training that I actually took right before the pandemic hit. So I have quite a list, and I would like, instead of coming back in separate pieces, to come back with one comprehensive report. It would push out the timeline a bit. I would think perhaps our December meeting or maybe our first one in January. My thinking when it comes to the electronic participation individually would be that there doesn't seem to be a likelihood that by the beginning or mid-January, we would no longer be in a declared state of an emergency, and therefore the current way our electronic meetings would continue to be permitted. So it's really just the, when we resume in-person meetings, it would allow an individual councillor to participate. So that's what I was thinking, but I just wanted to update everyone in case you were wondering when you were going to see that back.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If there's no questions on that, we're going to skip ahead past delegations to the accounts, number 10A, and the copy of the GL summary. Any questions or comments on that, Council? Trevor, is there anything you want to highlight on that report?
Nothing significant right now.
Okay. We do need a motion to receive and file that report then. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. We will go to non-action correspondence, 11A. Is there anything that anyone on council wants to highlight or discuss in the non-action reports there? Oh, Councillor Morris.
I make a motion to receive and file the non-action.
Thank you. And seconding that is Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. Now we have a few action correspondence items. I'm going to go through them one by one. First was the Township of North Glengarry resolution regarding safe restart agreement. Second was the Township of Asphodel Norwood resolution regarding cannabis production. Central Lambton Family Health Team recruitment budget letter.
did we give them money before? Okay,
Okay. I think we would like to recruit on our own. It would be great to put money towards a recruitment, but maybe more locally. Then we have the City of St. Catharines notification development approval requirements for landfills. Wellington County aggregate resource property valuation and advocacy report. Township of Wellington North support for Wellington County aggregate resolution. Northumberland County resolution regarding governing body for cannabis. WMAFRA virtual municipal agriculture economic development and planning forum. Township of Oro Medonte ski resort support letter for a council motion included. So we're not very action oriented on that one. That's all right though. We do need a motion to receive and file that correspondence. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. We are going to move on to staff reports. 13A. Sorry, Council, just give me 1 second. Thank you. My daughter just got home and didn't realize I was in a meeting. So we're going on to staff reports, current municipal service levels and COVID-19 impacts. Another great report, very thorough. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that report? Seeing none, we will need a motion to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you again, Amanda, for those reports. It's always good for council to be able to see what's going on. And we will go to the quarterly report. Any questions or comments on that? Amanda, is there anything you wanted to highlight as a part of that report?
I do, thank you, Mayor Rembes. I do just want to highlight that we did undertake a review of our 2020 projects and priorities and status as an SLT team. And I think it was really helpful for me anyway, I hope for the rest of our team, going through that process and what may be carried over into 2021. Overall, I do think, given the challenges this year, I would just want to say thank you to my fellow SLT members for all their hard work. I think they've done a great job delivering almost everything that was on the gate for 2020, and as well as dealing with some other obvious operational items through COVID-19. So well done.
Thank you to all of our staff for that. It really is amazing how much you have accomplished through all of the challenges that this year has brought us. So we do need a motion from council to receive and file that report. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. And we probably have time to go to the proposed 2021 calendar of meetings, which is kind of a standard calendar. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, we need a motion to move the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. And I think we probably have time for the Blue Water Power contract renewal. It was a very thorough report. Does anybody have any questions about that report? Seeing none, how does council want to move forward with that recommendation? Councillor Morris, you want to move the recommendation as
I
written?
move the recommendation.
Okay, and seconded by Councillor Westgate. Any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Phase 2. We have a few minutes. Let's go to phase 2, COVID-19 quarterly Q3 variance and year-end forecast. So this is a report on the funding. So I'm going to ask Trevor, is there anything you would like to speak to on that report?
Well, this is why I didn't talk about the regular variance report. Essentially, the financial impact section is where we have to look at. Revenues are going to fall short roughly by 407,000, falling into two things. Our own source revenues are down. We know the reason why. We haven't been able to open halls, and a lot of the leagues that we ran to generate revenue, such as baseball and even hockey, have had to, ice rentals have had to be pulled back. And the second one is we've done a fairly good job in recent years of generating a lot of interest by being very proactive with a treasury function. With the outbreak of COVID, the market's collapsed in terms of bank rates, and you can basically get money for prime 0.25. So we're not making the returns that we thought we would. On the expenditure side of things, we're looking to be about 241,000 higher. Primary drivers there are the reopening protocols, higher operating costs for cleaning and maintaining a safe environment for residents and staff. One of those being, we now have to have separate vehicles. So our vehicle costs have gone up substantially this year so that we can provide social distancing for staff. Again, we've offset what we can against the phase 1 payment of 89,400. But just so that everyone knows, we're going to still be in a position where we're going to draw upon revenues to offset future losses.
All right. So this report is just a recommendation that Trevor continue going forward with the application for the Safe Restart funding.
Phase 2.
Phase 2. Okay. Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Morris. Any other questions, comments, or concerns about that? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. So council, we only have 2 minutes, so I think we can go right up to our delegations and invite Shauna from Spreets. Is it Shauna or Shana?
Shanna.
Shanna, thank you.
Shanna.
Shanna.
So Shanna, just so council knows, I'll let her in now, is with Matt as well from Spreet, so they are together. You'll see them both.
Okay. Hi, Shanna and Matt. How are you tonight? You are muted, just so that you know. We can't hear you.
There we go.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
So I'm going to turn the floor over to you, and you can do a presentation and have council ask questions and comments following that.
Great.
And
Presentation.
as discussed, we'll share the screen. Council should be able to see the presentation on their screen right now. Okay, great. Thanks, Shanna. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to ask that questions be held to the end of the presentation just so we can get through the slides here quickly. Okay, can you switch to the next slide, please, Amanda? Okay, starting with the site plan. In order to accommodate the addition to the Watford Arena, the existing Centennial Hall and the ball diamond to the south of the rink needs to be removed. This will provide us with the required area for the parking and the new structure. The existing main entrance will remain as the central entrance to the facility. We've expanded the entrance to reduce on possible bottlenecking by adding an additional door adjacent to the arena entrance. This entrance will serve as the new main entrance to the YMCA, as well as access to the new elements within the addition. A large hardscape area has been provided at this entrance with a drop-off and pickup zone that will allow for social distancing. The community center entrance is located adjacent to the south entrance parking lot. This entrance provides direct access to the multi-purpose room and access to the rest of the facility as well. The new parking lot has been sized accordingly to accommodate a variety of functions that can be held within the addition while taking in consideration the need for the arena. 2 vehicular accesses have been provided on Centennial Ave, and along with the side road, we've provided a turf stone entrance with removable barriers for emergency and service vehicle access. Over 200 parking spaces have been provided, 8 barrier-free parking spots, and 2 electric charging stations, and provisions for future charging stations have been provided. Next slide, please. We've provided some renderings to better illustrate the building materials and experiences that will take place at these entrances. At the main entrance, we have recladded around the existing doors and added new matching sliding doors to the south, giving the facade proportion and symmetry. A shed roof has been added over the entrance to provide protection from the elements, along with new signage. At the community center entrance, we have added an extended roof, providing a large outdoor sheltered area and incorporated floor-to-ceiling glazing to maximize the interior natural light. The intent of this design is to provide a sense of warmth and welcomeness by creating a visual connection between the interior and exterior. Next slide, please. In reviewing the floor plans, we started with the additions and the renovation of the existing arena. At the north end of the building, we have added a new workshop for the township staff. It is complete with 2 overhead doors and easy access and maintenance of equipment, and complete with internal access to the arena. 3 new team change rooms have been added, 2 to the north end and 1 to the south. These change rooms are fully accessible and complete with current code standards. An existing smaller change room has been converted into a universal change room. Renovations to the viewing area include new washrooms, a flex space adjacent to the concession stand, new staff area, and a raised accessible viewing platform. An additional item that has recently added to the scope of work is replacement of the condenser for the ice resurfacing equipment. We will work with some consultants to ensure that the equipment is sized accordingly and meets the needs for the future. The existing generator is still under an evaluation, as it needs to be determined if it can support both the arena and the addition, or it will be used just for support for standby purposes only. Our electrical team will be in discussions with the township once the new building service has been sized. Next slide, please. Upon entering the new expanded main entrance, one will be drawn to the new donor wall. The donor wall is located adjacent to the YMCA and shared corridor to the existing arena. Down the main corridor, a large storage room has been provided along with a meeting room, which is easily divided into 2 meeting rooms. Adjacent to the south vestibule, you will find a corridor with large windows and options for seating. At this end of the corridor is a lounge with a corridor and workstations that allow for viewing of the activities taking place in the multi-purpose room. A rendering has been provided on the following slide for further clarification. Men's and women's change rooms have been provided along with the universal family-friendly change rooms. These change rooms are intended to be shared with the YMCA and multi-purpose rooms. Our mechanical engineer will be incorporating a green design by using a solar source to heat the water used for these change rooms. Separate washrooms have been provided. If a formal function is operating in the multi-purpose room, there will be restrictions that can be put in place so that the YMCA has access to the change rooms if needed. A kitchen and bar area has been provided for direct use of the multi-purpose room, and we are working with the user group to ensure that we're meeting their needs. To the east of the kitchen, we have created an area intended for deliveries, but has also been designed to accommodate outdoor events. Next slide, please. Now you can see here this in the bottom left-hand corner there, the outdoor kitchen area It is covered and will have gas connections and all the required safety requirements for cooking outdoors for the outdoor events. And there on the right, we've got the rendering of the lounge and the viewing area for the multi-purpose area. If you have any questions, we can answer them at this time.
Council, questions and comments? Councillor Mora.
I had a couple of things. You mentioned the workstations. What exactly are you including in the workstations?
It would be like power adapters, USB charging
Okay.
stations. Yeah.
Yeah, so the intent is a bar height work surface with power built in. My understanding is data is going to be provided wirelessly.
Okay. The other question what I noticed and I didn't like at all was you've taken a large chunk of the kitchen away. Looks like for space for the dividing wall. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, in my opinion.
Amanda, did you want to address that? Because that was through consultation with our Optimist group, was it not? That it was decided that the kitchen was larger?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, I'd be happy to speak to that, and I'll look to Teresa if I leave anything out. We have consulted upon the previous direction from council with both the Optimist Club on the bar layout as well as some service clubs on the kitchen layout. And actually, previously, the kitchen was bumped out further to kind of match the storage room, and it was felt that the space was not needed. So it's reflected their comments, this new size. And certainly one of the things that will be outlined in Teresa's report a little bit later on is the kind of next steps for public consultation should council wish to move forward to that stage. And certainly there would be efforts to reach out with our catering and user groups that use kitchens. But the preliminary feedback we had was that the kitchen size we had was not necessary. It was larger than necessary.
Also, another thing to comment on is that there's kitchen cold storage to the one side, so you wouldn't need the refrigerators that we have in the current kitchen.
Correct.
So, and how does this compare to the kitchen in the Centennial Hall right now? Like size-wise?
I don't have that information, do you?
Okay, we don't have the square footage on us.
Okay.
But we do have an equipment list, and we are working with the user group to ensure that we meet the needs, like square footage wise.
Okay. I love the outdoor cooking area for events. I think that would be fantastic for a lot of our different events that we have. Councillor White?
Can the kitchen be used by two groups at the same time if the hall's split?
Yes, that's the idea.
Okay.
So it's
a way to coordinate that, like with storage and events, like.
Yeah, the groups would have to work together somewhat. There's only one dishwasher, for example. So there's going to have to be a coordination between the user groups as far as getting that taken care of. But the intent is there is enough warming stations, et cetera, that they're able to both sides are able to use it simultaneously.
And are strategically laid out that they're not going to run over each other.
They both have workspaces, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Here, if I understand, this slide right here has got the little jut into the kitchen I was talking about. So you're saying there's enough room to work around that island with that jut in there. It doesn't look like much room.
So that island has, and it can be bumped out a bit if that is something that the user groups come back with. We can take a bit more away from that outside space. It is pretty large, but so that bump out is actually where the partition folds into, which is one of the tricky sort of design elements with it, is that you have to have a place to put the folding wall. And we felt that was the direction, having it go into the kitchen, because they're going to be subdivided as far as both sides being used anyway, that that is the correct design move. Now, is there room between the workspaces and that wall? If the user groups come back and they say we'd like another foot, 2 foot between that and the partition housing, that's something we can look at and talk about at that point.
Would you please point that out to them when you meet with them?
I actually cannot. Our
We don't have access to.
yeah,
this.
sorry, our Zoom is on a computer separate to the ones we're on currently. But if you see where
Oh, and this, can you do this on that?
yeah, I didn't. Can you guys see our maps?
No, so
Okay,
Yes.
so where 11 is, yeah, exactly. So I think the area in question is between the island in the middle, where there'll be plate storage and sort of a prep area, and then the that hard black line where the partition folds into. That's the area you're speaking of, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we can bump that.
So again, we can move that wall out a bit if it is found that that area is not sufficient. It's 4 feet, I believe, at this point. So it's because of the scale of the building. Sometimes like specific scales can be lost. But it is a valid question and something that maybe should be brought up to the user groups.
Well, I know the caterers use carts an awful lot anymore for gathering the dirty dishes and taking out clean dishes.
Absolutely.
I'm concerned that there won't be enough room there for them to move the carts through.
That's a valid concern and
carts-
something we will look into.
The carts are
Thank you.
designed to go under this counter, are they not?
The carts will go under the counter. What he's saying is in the interim, because you're gonna have plates coming in.
Yeah.
And then if somebody's trying to move, say between first and second course,
Yeah.
you're trying to move between the two, there could be an issue there. So that's a valid concern and something we'll look at.
Thank you.
And the storage for the clean dishes is going to be on carts underneath that counter, is that correct?
That's correct. We found that that's a really
love that.
effective place to put it. Keeps the dust off, it keeps them out of the way.
Yep.
It tends to work quite well.
Yeah, it's much better than cupboards, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot less cupboard doors falling off, which is always great.
There's no way we can put that door down in the corridor on the other side.
You're like the sort of the house for the
Like put it
Well-
beside the south vestibule there and
slide it in there. So the issue there becomes access into the second multi-purpose room from the corridor. We did attempt it at first. So the amount of space that partition requires actually made it so we were unable to put the access door from the corridor in there, which made it so you couldn't get to washrooms without going outside, which is not something we deemed reasonable. So it is possible we would lose some we'd lose some of the connection between the covered area and where, like when you pull the car in and the gym itself or the multi-purpose room. So we thought balancing those two options, it seemed the kitchen was more accepting, let's say, of that bump out than sort of where people come in that access point.
There's I think the kitchen's actually bigger than we picture it, guys.
It's not quite as big as the Centennial.
Do you know rough numbers for Centennial?
I think when we measured it out, when we bumped the wall out, we had about the same size.
Okay, because this is 800 square feet.
Yes.
So was Centennial a problem? Did you guys find it was a bit tight?
Would we have a full function in there? It's not a lot of room.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of the size of the one at the Elvingston complex and the Thetford complex are much bigger. And
Those I don't know off the top of my head, but are something we can look at.
well, it's just that jut in of the wall partition. That other than that, I'd say the kitchen's fine. It's just I don't know how that'll go over.
How much room do you have? difficult to partition in the counter. Okay.
I know I checked it today.
It's a natural split of the kitchen though, and it could. Part of the reason to have it that way is you kind of want it to operate as two kitchens if it can.
That was sort of the intent, is that it creates a barrier between the two, but is not closed off between the two, because like I said, both sides are going to need to use the fridge, both sides will need to use the dishwasher.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest question is that going to be a bottleneck between services?
Yeah, layout, like appliance layout is key.
Yeah.
And how you actually lay the kitchen out, and efficient spacing. And there may be, you may need to duplicate a couple things like service areas that can simultaneously run.
Absolutely. So it's hard to see in this image, and it could be that I did it today. But there's work surfaces against the wall down at the bottom. It was originally a pass through. That's been kiboshed. Those will be work areas for, my thoughts are plating and then going on carts before they go out. I found that there generally isn't enough space for that in conference centers. And then at the top, in the center portion, is where your cooktops are, the heating, warming ovens. And those I've kept out of the way to try to avoid any sort of issues there. But you're right, like it's something we'll go to the user group, we'll see if this isn't going to work because of, and then adapt to that. There is enough space here that we are able to play with some things and find the right balance of sort of space without taking up too much additional room, which was the original problem we had. As soon as you start putting ovens in, it was like you could have 3 full kitchens in the amount of space we originally had.
Yeah, it's really how work flows and running 2 simultaneous events that are serving different groups.
Yeah.
And how does that really work?
Yeah, absolutely. So it is something that I think we're getting to where it needs to be. There may be a few more tweaks between now and final project, or sorry, final production drawings, but it's getting closer. I feel anyway.
Would it be possible for you to have a bigger print of the kitchen area for these user groups to see?
Absolutely. We actually currently have one, so that is something that I can provide
Thank you,
or Amanda, and then that can be passed through if that's something they can do for us.
I really like that it gives a lot of options. You can technically, in like a summer event, you could have 3 different things going on at the same time.
Absolutely. And the door at the top, we're intending to have as a Dutch door with a shelf across it, so you could serve out the back door, or if something needed to be heated inside and you were doing, say, a fish fry or something on the outside, you're able to sort of interconnect between the two during those services. So hopefully that's something that works out well. Like
in that outdoor kitchen in the summer could actually be like almost a kitchen space.
Absolutely. It'll have gas hookups. It's going to have a hood so that you'll be able to run your deep fryers and your grill out there and have it go up and out of the actual covered area there.
Now, will it have some outdoor plumbing that could be shut off? Like like a sink area that can be
Yeah, Teresa, I don't remember if it was you, but it was brought up that was something, or maybe one of our mechanical.
I think we were gonna have outdoor water hookups for a portable sink.
Yeah,
that worked. Yep.
So that's available as well.
The bar can only serve out of the bar for one area at a time. And I was wondering about serving outside from the bar.
Well, in our rendering, didn't we have a nice table with?
Well, I mean, yeah, that's how it would currently be done. That was discussed, and the focus of the bar on one side was how it ended up falling. And
I don't
the other side and outside would have to use portable bar. Has been discussed where service for the other side could be done with a portable bar. So depending on how you choose to run your event, you would opt for either full bar service or perhaps a portable bar.
Council, I don't mean to interrupt this. This is all really good conversation, but we do have another delegation that was supposed to start 5 minutes ago, so we have to be respectful of them as well. This, we can discuss more later on. We have a report coming up from Teresa, I believe. Amanda, what else do we need from Matt and Shauna tonight?
Thanks, Miranda. That's a great question. So thanks for the overview, Matt and Shanna. So the intent of this was so that council could see the updates that staff have been working on in follow-up to their conversations with user groups and as the design process continues with our engineers. So, but it's meant to be paired with Teresa's report coming up, one of her Parks and Rec reports. And she does outline in it kind of next stages. The intent would be that if Teresa's report is approved later today, that these design renderings would be put out in our public newspaper and online, and open comment would be permitted for a period of, I think, 2 weeks off the top of my head or so. No specific questions, unlike our last rounds of public feedback, but open comments. That feedback would then be compiled and presented back to council at our November meeting, where Spreets will be present as well to receive the feedback, but also answer any additional questions from members of council. You're also welcome to submit specific questions through myself or Teresa or comments. And of course, through the online the public feedback process, of course, also if you want to be anonymous. Also at the next meeting, the intention is for Spree to come not only to speak to any of the questions that come from feedback, but also to costs. So at that meeting in November, council can expect to see a full outline of costs for the whole project. So you'll see a few things. The whole project, which is the arena renovation and the community hall at once. And then also you'll see cost estimates for it broken in stages. And I'm sure council will have some questions about costing, so Spree will be here also to answer those questions.
This is a huge project for the municipality. Can I suggest that meeting be a standalone meeting, that we have the time to really put some discussion into it, as opposed to it being just a part of a regular council meeting? What does council think about that?
I agree.
Yep. I agree with
So-
that.
I don't want it to rush any kind of decisions as far as this is concerned. I think council really needs time to discuss it and not feel rushed, is all I'm thinking. I think that this is a great plan we're on. Like, I think it looks fantastic, but I think there are tweaks and stuff. And absolutely, we want to make sure council is 100% on all of this. But I would like it to be a separate meeting other than just a regular council meeting.
Absolutely. So as you know, Mayor, the mayor at any time can schedule a special council meeting or call a special council meeting, as can the clerk. And taking the direction today, if that's council's wish, we can work together with Spreets and Teresa and the project timeline and send out some proposed dates around the next regular council meeting in November that still meet the timelines. And we'll make sure to do the proper public notice of that once it's been set, and that's no problem.
That would be great. Thank you guys so much for coming out tonight and giving us a springboard to go with. And I look forward to hearing all of the comments and more questions from council.
Thank you.
No problem.
So do we need a motion to approve this to go to the next steps, Amanda?
I think, Mayor Roberts, that will come when we consider Teresa's report. As for the delegation itself, there's no official or procedural action that's required other than to say thanks to Shanna and Matt.
All right. Thank you, guys. We will see you soon.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Bye.
You too. And we have Sue Eagles here. from Inspire Fundraising Consulting, and she's here to explain the role of the feasibility study for this project. So we're going to welcome her into the meeting. I hope council's okay with that. I couldn't see everybody during that discussion, but I think it's really important that we all have an opportunity for all of those questions, because they were all good questions. We want to make sure that we're comfortable going forward. So, hi Sue, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Fine, thanks.
Good. Welcome. Sorry about the bit of a delay. This is a big project and we had a delegation kind of explaining the update for it. So, and
I was
council's
watching it on
excited,
YouTube.
obviously. Yeah. Okay, good. So you understand why it was.
Yeah, that was really helpful for me too. So yeah, and I got to see you all for 45 minutes.
Good. You're our one viewer, maybe.
I know there were 4.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to turn it over to you, Sue, and give you an opportunity to explain your role here.
Yeah, so Teresa and I go back obviously to her work in Aylmer when our firm worked on the twin pad in town there, and it was quite a while ago. It was one of our first big arena campaigns. And so she gave me a call last week as she's thinking about moving forward and how fundraising might work. And so we just kind of had a bit of a catch-up call. And I know she's collected some of our documents from Lambton Shores, and I sent her a couple of our proposals that we had written, just so that she was in the loop. And I believe in your agenda package is a copy of our feasibility study report from Thetford. So, so I'm really here. I just offered really to say, hey, happy to Zoom in virtually to walk through any questions that you might have, but I've got a kind of a page of notes, so I thought I'd go through, and then if you have any questions. So I'm with Inspire Fundraising, and we specialize in helping organizations go into the campaign process, and sometimes we work through the campaign process with them. And we have worked extensively down in your area. So that's me personally. It's not like, it's me. So in the Lambton Shores, we worked on the campaign for the community center and the single pad there, right? Single? Or is it double? I can't remember. Sorry. A single, yeah. In Thetford, which was a really exciting program. Jeff Zavitz was the chair, and I've been back to see both arenas since the renovations, but that was an $800,000 campaign, and that led to a third project working on the Grand Band beach enhancements. So if you've been to the beach, the splash pad and the little pavilions, even that whole flag system, the donor recognition wall, and other enhancements to the beach were all part of a fundraising campaign. But in addition to that, because you've got a Y coming into your site, very familiar with folks at the Y. I know they've merged into London now, but worked with the YMCA's of Southwestern Ontario on the Chatham Y feasibility study, the Leadership Challenge Center in Sarnia, and also at the Godrich Y. It ended up being a town project, but that was the new park. That was where the horse racing was in town, the Trotters, their baseball park and that kind of thing. So anyhow, so I wanted to walk through, at least from those experiences, why organizations do a feasibility study to get going, because it really is the best practice fundraising planning tool, business tool to ensure that your campaign is successful. So, so I've got some notes on my screen. I'm just going to walk through. But I did want to give you that history of who I am and some of the local work. So a feasibility study is a business planning tool that has 6 or 7 major objectives, and I think are really important in terms of planning for a successful fundraising campaign. First of all, is to assess the ability and willingness of your community to support whatever is identified as that community share, the local community contribution outside of local or provincial governments for the renewal of the community center. So you really want to, you may think, gosh, the community is going to get behind it. I think you want evidence that that's the case, because you don't want to be short of your goal, obviously. One of the things you need to do is create awareness that there is a campaign on the horizon, and through conversations with community leaders, you will start to create that awareness. excuse me, identify concerns and challenges that people might have before you start. So, and again, starting into fundraising. So people will be very candid to tell you, I have these concerns. I think this is a real opportunity. I would do this, I would do that. Lots of great advice comes at you through personal conversations. Building potential relationships. I'm going to walk through what we do in a sec, but Teresa would be actively involved in this. So it's not like a consultant comes into town, learns all this stuff and just submits a report. It really becomes intuitive on your end too of what's happening. Assess the local climate for fundraising. So I'm working right now. You mentioned Northumberland County in one of your reports that you were bringing forward. So I'm working with Northumberland County right now on a feasibility study for the Golden Plough Lodge, which is their long-term care home, as well as moving their archives from the Coburg Public Library into a new facility. And so we're learning a lot through this study about the local climate for fundraising and things that will have a great impact. We're also finding out from people in the community what are their burning concerns. So obviously COVID's one of them. You know, raising money during COVID times is pretty uncharted, right? So people are giving us ideas. You know, we know we can't do events like we used to do. So we're trying to navigate that. And so that local climate for fundraising is really important. Like we had a chat with the Rotary Club of Coburg, which is the biggest service club. And the CAO of Northumberland County, Jennifer Moore, is a Rotarian. So she was on the call. But Rotary hasn't been able to raise money this year. They struggle. You know, we learned that they have some commitments currently. We also learned that they want to be able to provide direct support to a family that doesn't have any food right now, or is, you know, having some food insecurity, those kinds of things. And it's really valuable advice that you learn. So I keep going on my little list here, but identify the potential local volunteers that would serve on your campaign cabinet. So, you know, through conversations with people, you will get a sense of who, you know, Mayor Jackie might suggest, and also when you talk to other people in the community, who are the folks that they think you know would be great volunteers. So, because you want to build a really strong campaign cabinet, because your campaign is going to be locally driven, right? It's not going to be driven outside community. You want to find out if people will support the campaign. And I know in some of Teresa's materials, it talks about a gift chart. And that is really the roadmap to success based on your community giving patterns. So the study will help figure that out. You know, do you have a $500,000 donor locally? Or, you know, is your top gift going to be 50,000? So you'd want to try to get some inclinations or get your arms around that early stages so that you carve out the right campaign strategy. So otherwise you're gathering advice and guidance from people. And then the end result is a business plan for fundraising so that you figure out if your goal is, you know, 3 million, can you do it? How long is it going to take? What does the leadership structure look like? What do the naming opportunities look like? Those kinds of things. So that's a feasibility study. The process, it's only about 4 points, so it won't take too long. But one of the first things you need to do when working with a consultant is create a case for support. That's a 2 to 3 page document that identifies what your project is, what benefits it has, what problems it's solving, key features like the stuff you're talking about tonight. People love that, right? It's going to have 2 kitchens, or it's going to have this and a that. You know, you want to get people inspired about it, but you also want to present the rationale for community support, how much that might be. And it doesn't have a call to action yet. It's an early stage document, but that's what you chat with people about in the community. Then we need to build a list of about 40 community folks that would want to be interviewed. So that could be people in Sarnia, if people are working in the you know, oil and gas. That could be local service clubs. That could be some of your regional farmers. It could be like one of the biggest donors for Teresa in Aylmer was the local telecommunications firm. So, and that was was that a $250,000 gift or something like that? So we're going to figure out where that money is going to come from local business, service groups, families, farmers, you know, Sarnia and Chemical Valley, whatever, all of those things. So But we would look at a list of about 40 folks and we'd be doing 30 interviews. As mentioned, Northumberland County, we're doing all our interviews on Zoom. So first time I've ever done that. Like I did, obviously, for most of you too. We didn't have to do that. We sat with people in their offices and at Tim Hortons or in their kitchens. And the Zoom's working pretty well. It's not as great as sitting down with someone face to face, but we're still gathering the data. And in those meetings, Teresa and perhaps Amanda would be involved in them, wherever the relationships line up. So I'm saying Northumberland County, our Director of Communications for the county is doing 75% of the interviews, and the CAO is doing the ones where it's important that she be on that or has an existing relationship. And their role, your role in that, is to really review the case, tell them why, whether it's the status of the project. Like, you know, in that case, it's a 200,000 square foot long-term care home, 6,000 square feet of archives, and being able to talk about all the details. Like I can get some of that over time, but it's so authentic when it comes from you guys. And then I ask all the fundraising questions, and that is questions about the project, reputation, about leadership in the community, such as like who's the ideal chair of this campaign and who are others that should be on the campaign committee. You know, where do you think the who the top few donors might be, and who are others that we've got to make sure are, you know, we would involve, and so forth. So there's a series of about 15 or 16 questions that help us understand the community. But in the meantime, we're building a relationship. We're gathering advice. We're not asking for money, but we're setting the stage. So I say it's like the first date. It's, you know, we're not quite, you know, too far along in the dating relationship, but you can't just go in and ask people. You need to build a relationship first. And so these are some of the steps that we do. And then finally, at the end of the interviews, and it's about an 8 to 10 week process, is a report that outlines all of the findings. In fact, every comment that's at least the ones that I write down, come back in a report to staff, and then a report comes to council, really indicating what's the go forward plan, and answers the kind of, like I went through 7 or 8 questions earlier that like assesses the climate for local fundraising and all those things. You'll get a really good read. So it is a bit research, it's a bit cultivation, but it gives you a grounded approach to implementing that campaign locally. And of course, that campaign would be run locally. It would be driven locally by local people. So, and just finally, my last couple of comments is, why do you use a consultant? Because you might be thinking, gosh, we could go out and just chat with people ourselves. So for 3 or 4 reasons, but number one is to have someone provide an experienced and objective viewpoint on this. And I think that's really important. So someone like me has done these a gazillion times, like many, many times, years over years, and even in, like obviously in your local area. So I think it provides an objective viewpoint for you, so you could build a great plan. Someone to lead that process in a methodical way, so that it doesn't get caught in all the hundreds of things that Teresa's doing now with planning the building and all of the COVID things she has to do and God knows what else. So, but you've got someone who's pushing that plan forward. But I think most importantly, it is that experience of doing this 100 times so that you avoid the pitfalls and the landmines, and do it in an objective way. So that's all I wanted to say tonight. It was just, I know you don't even have an RFP out for this yet, and you're still wondering, do you need to do it? And I just wanted to give you the reasons of why others do it.
Okay, does the council have any questions for Sue tonight? Teresa, do you have anything that you'd like to add to what Sue had to say?
No, just to thank Sue, especially coming out tonight, and we'll be covering it, I guess, on my report later. Also.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining us, and we'll let you get on with your evening, and we're going to get on with this agenda.
Yeah, it's my birthday, so I'd like to have a glass of wine.
Oh, so. Happy birthday. Yeah.
Okay, take care, everybody. Thanks.
Yeah, take care. Okay, council, we are going to get back onto the agenda. And we will get to that report in a little bit. I'm trying to find where we left off. We did.
F, Mayor Rumbugs.
Thank you, Amanda.
No
So
problem.
we are on the rescind bylaw 43 of 2013 for Class B gravel pit. Everyone's had a chance to read that report, I'm sure. And there is a recommendation on that report. Councillor Mitchell, did you have a question or a comment, or did you want to move the recommendation?
I was just going to move the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Morris? And any questions or comments on that? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. See, our reports are just getting so good, Amanda. Nobody even needs to ask a question. All right. So we are going to go on to G, which is the Watford Community Arena Condenser. And there is a recommendation on that as well. How does council want to deal with that recommendation?
I have a question.
Yep.
The 81,000 that it's going to cost, is that something we'd add to budget, or how quickly does this have to be done? Like, is it an emergency situation with the condenser, or?
Yes.
Okay.
It's something that needs to be done. The refrigeration plan itself is, I believe, somewhat the original plant that's had a lot of work done to it. But this is, we now have an ammonia leak. It's been 2 years running, to the point where you could smell ammonia. So it definitely is emergent. Okay. And when I checked with the treasurer, Trevor had indicated that that the financial the cost of replacing the condenser and adding the glycol loop would come from general reserves.
Okay, thank you.
I think one of the other things you got to remember is if this thing fails on
We're
us,
done. Yeah,
we're done, and it's not going to be put in the next day. Like, it could go real bad and leak a lot of ammonia and be a major health and safety issue.
Yep. No, just a question where we're at. Yep.
Teresa?
Sorry, and to Councillor Morris's point, it takes about 10 to 12 weeks for delivery, a week to install, and there is a 12-hour period where we need to shut down the ice making equipment to complete the installation.
So we want it cold when that happens.
Yes.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
Councillor White?
So with that, you've kind of targeted mid-January in essence to hopefully get cold weather.
Our hope was that we could get it in before the end of the year, but it depends on shipping and the time, if we can get it any sooner. But yeah, definitely when it's cold.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So do we have a mover for that recommendation? Moved by Councillor Morris, seconded by Councillor White. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. I'm glad that that's getting dealt with, because that could be a serious health and safety concern. So we'll go to H, Watford Arena expansion to community center and arena renovations. And our delegations did cover some of this, and there's a good report there. Teresa, did you want to speak to that at all?
Sure. With the discussion and the background, it did come from a previous analysis that was used for the grant application, a previous grant application. And with regards to this discussion portion of it, we have had, I hope it's evident that we've done a considerable amount of work to this point. And COVID aside, it has had some challenges for us to meet as a group, but we did have a full group or team meeting this past Thursday and accomplished a lot more. We're at the point where at the end of this week that we should have, our goal is to have everything in, all the specifications, so that for the November meeting, you will be able to get pricing and that type of stuff, estimates. So we're still working on kitchen, and as Amanda had alluded to, we're looking at doing one final community consultation process. And along with what Amanda had mentioned, we're also going to do in person. So for example, what I put in here was to meet with the Optimist Club regarding the bar. And I'm actually hosting an Optimist Club meeting in November, where I'm hoping to have the drawings there and be able to review the bar with them. And also the kitchen. So public health, get their feedback on the kitchen to make sure we're meeting all the requirements, as well as kitchen users. And for example, for one example would be the Rotary Club. So getting feedback again. So those would be more of an in-person meeting. Our timelines are tight, but achievable, pending, I guess, any COVID-related issues coming up. And so we are looking, as we said, we're bringing it forward tonight, the plans, which Spreet had presented. 27th, tomorrow I meet with the Parks and Rec staff. And then 2 weeks of community consultation, and then to bring it back to council on November 16th. But as indicated, perhaps that would be a standalone meeting around that time frame. And then at that time, you would have some estimated costs and potential phases of project, with the final numbers and construction phases coming back to the December 7th meeting, so that we can get the project tendered by the end of January.
Okay, any questions or comments from council? Councillor White.
Just the costing, since we're not getting grants and all of that now, we are on our own on this. And you did talk about phasing it. How would that work? And is it feasible to put some of these large numbers into our budget in future?
I can speak to phasing. Is that okay, Amanda? And that Trevor and Amanda can speak to costing. Sure. So phasing that we looked at would be, for example, arena renovations would be one phase, and the new addition would be a second phase, or the entire project is done at one time. So some of the things to think about when we're looking at phasing the project is that one is that the arena renovations, for the most part, will not interrupt a regular season, with the exception of dressing rooms. We still need dressing rooms. So we really do need to get that work done in an off season. So April to August. And then with regards to the new addition, there's still work that would be required to be done in the arena part, because as soon as we become one building, it's one service to the building, one power source. So you're looking at upgrades that are required. So for example, it will become a sprinkler system throughout the entire building. So it's one water source, one sprinkler system, emergency lighting, and signage. So those would be upgrades. So now the current signage is the green running man. And so we would have that consistent throughout the building. So there are things that we've talked about that if we did the new build, we could run pipes to a certain point. But there would be probably some work that we'd have to work over again when we're going back in to do the renovations. And outside of that, I don't know, Amanda, did I miss anything?
I don't think so. So my comments on funding, to your question, Councillor White, would be that, as outlined in the financial impact section of the report, is how Trevor does have it lined up for the budget right now. The thing that is not clear right now, or crystal clear, which is not crystal clear, is the total amount of the project in both scenarios. So that's why the plan in November is to come back with costs and these different scenarios, so that council will have more information, and hopefully we'll be able to prepare some kind of list of considerations for council, because aside from what Therese has outlined with retouching areas, there are some considerations in regards to grants. So right now we know we weren't successful, but there may be more opportunities coming. There may not be. It may mean we would be successful with those grant opportunities. Maybe it would delay the project by a year and we wouldn't be successful, right? So it's really in the end going to be up to council to direct how they want to proceed. And I think you're right. You need the numbers to be able to really consider how that will work. But the way it's outlined right now in the financial implications is how Trevor has it currently lined up in the budget. He may have some comments, so I don't want to take that away from our treasurer. He may have some comments. Just passing it all around.
Doing all the work to the arena and this layout, we're looking at a lot more money than we were before.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm looking at 10 to 15 million.
You're probably right.
Probably closer to the 15 now.
Yeah.
Trevor, did you have any comments?
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Would we have, with the analysis of costs and things like that, would finance be able to show us, if we had to go, if we decided that we were doing it all at once, and what type of situation that would put us in on the debt side, because we likely have to take on some debt, and our credit levels, if they'd be maintained for the rest of our operations. That's all.
Yeah.
Councillor
What
Boris.
we've always been told before, I'm sure it would be okay, still okay.
It would put us tight. And it would probably put a delay on other capital projects for several years till we got down to a reasonable number.
If we split the phases, Trevor, would we be able to apply for a grant for the arena portion then?
Well, that's how we have it set up right now. We've got the arena set up for 2020, I believe 2022, because that's when the second phase or second window of the ICIP CCR opens.
I think we got a gun for the grant, but we have to wait and see the numbers.
So when council meets on finance, yes, there will be a report on overall financial impact, the impact on debt capacity, and related options at a high level. Absolutely.
We have a lot of thinking to do, council. What do you need from council today then, Teresa? Like, there is a recommendation here, but that is just to the community center and arena renovations construction progress report as presented. So that's just to receive and file.
I think so, or is it?
No. So yes and no, Mayor Runbeck. So by nature of approving this report, I do want to just point out that yes, it would be a receive and file and general agreement with the project timeline that's presented. But what I want to indicate specifically is that means that we would proceed with the existing drawings and our public consultation beginning soon. So if you approve the report as presented, that would be the next step.
Thank you, Amanda, for that clarification. Councillor White?
Yes, there will be a future opportunity to talk about phasing, though, or how we will proceed.
Absolutely. So that's what's planned for the November meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that meeting has to be a standalone meeting. It's just so much to cover.
Mhm.
I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing
Okay.
I have with approving this recommendation, the way it stands, does that mean the print that we saw tonight is the print?
No,
No.
it
So
means
the
that's
intent
the
would
print
be
that goes to
you're,
the
you're
public.
approving the print for public consultation purposes. So
Okay,
it'll go back out to the public. We'll complete that individual consultation with the user groups as Teresa has outlined. And then all that feedback will come back to council with the costing, and then we'll be able to take further direction on cost, phasing, design, all that good stuff in our now special council meeting to deal with this project.
I'll move.
Okay, moved by Councillor White. Seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Any other questions or comments? All in favor? Oh, are you raising to vote, Councillor
yeah,
Morris, or
I'm
did
just
you have a
looking
question?
in the draw.
All right. Thank you. All right, that is passed. And we're going to go down to the next one, which is focused more on the fundraising side of things and kind of coincides with Sue's delegation. And this is, I believe, more of an update, more of an in-depth report on what we had discussed the last time.
What is the cost of having these people do this?
We have to go to RFP, but I believe that we have budgeted for $10,000 for this report. Teresa, do you want to correct me?
Yeah, so my apologies. I did go out and do a lot more work on this, and the actual, when consulting other locations as well as a consultant, it's more in lines of 20,000. But it's also dependent on, say, how much work is done. So we could scale back the questions, but if we scale them back too far, then we don't get enough information. That would be like useful information. And so this 20,000 is what other municipalities have been paying for a similar type of feasibility study.
We are looking at a potentially $15 million project. It's
Yep.
not a small
No.
thing. So, Councillor White?
I agree that we need some in-depth understanding of what the capability is of fundraising in the community, and I think the feasibility study helps us get that understanding. So I support the idea of doing a feasibility study, and even if it is 20,000, it's like you said, it's a $15 million project. So we have to.
How much do you want to raise from the community?
That's
Yeah,
what this study
That's
is
what
gonna
the
tell
study will
us.
tell us, what our capability is. Yeah.
How long will it take to get this study done?
As per Sue's recommendation, so I put in here to do over the months of November and December.
So we would have that information in front of us of how much our potential community could raise before we make our final decision?
That's what my hope would be.
Okay.
But we would
That
have
would
to
be good
act
information.
and act on it now to get it going.
Mhm. Is that a reasonable timeline? Like, because we have to do an RFP, do we not? So. Question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Mhm.
Teresa, you are muted, just so.
Oh, sorry. Yes. So it would be very tight, but the goal of it is so that you have the information to be able, the best information possible to be able to make an informed decision. But it is a really tight timeline. We do have some wiggle room in January because we put it to RFP at the end of January. And even then, Spreed has said, because we're not starting the project until spring, that we do have a little bit of wiggle room in there, but I would still start immediately on the process.
This will, like, I'm just looking at the feasibility study that Teresa has attached to this report, and some
Bedford.
of the questions are really, I mean, I would love to know the answers
Yes.
to
Yep.
a lot of these questions. Like, do
Mhm,
you believe that there's a need for this facility? Do you have, you know,
mhm.
I think it's good information to have. It's not just, they're not just going to come back and say, well, this is how much to raise. They're going to actually have a plan of action to go forward with the fundraising, and who in the community we should be going to ask for help on this. And it's a big undertaking, and
And what is a reasonable goal?
that's right, exactly.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What is there? I think we have a pretty good idea ourselves what a reasonable goal is. I would set a goal of about $1 million. And
That's the number I was looking at.
Mhm,
we know people, we did enough studies on it. We know what people wanted. We know what they wanted.
mhm. But is the potential there that actually, if we go to a broader community, can we bring in 2, million?
Yeah.
Watford's a small community. I know we,
Well, I'm not talking about Watford. I'm talking Chemical Valley, the companies where Blue Water Power, all these companies that employ our residents who service them daily.
well,
you
we
know.
get some, we'd have to get some from Blue Water Power, Waste
Yep.
Management, all the
You need
service.
gas.
Union Gas, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
I
and
think it's the process of how to go forward.
how to
with
go about
this
it. Yeah.
that we need help with. Like,
Yep.
it's a big
It's a big
ask,
process.
and these guys know how to do it. They know who
I
to
agree.
get to ask what and all of that stuff that I don't have that information.
Yep, no.
Okay, so Counselor White, you've moved that.
I'll move the feasibility study, yeah, if I haven't done that already. Yep.
Okay, and Counselor Mitchell is seconding it. We're still going to discuss. Amanda, did you want to comment on this?
I just want to clarify if we're moving the whole recommendation for the report. And I also just wanted to point out to council that if timeline was your concern, we could either bring back a report related to sole sourcing permitted in our purchasing policy, or we, that is an option. I'm not suggesting that that's the option council considers today, but it is an option that would help the timeline.
well, if we're gonna go ahead with the feasibility study, we got to do it now.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Jerry, sorry, Councilor Westgate, that's why I made that note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments, council? All right, all in favor of moving forward with this?
Thank you.
That's carried. I know it's a tough one to bite off, but I think it will be beneficial.
Worthwhile, for sure.
I think so. Okay. Everybody okay? No. All right, we're going to move on to Stormwater Master Plan recommendation. Andrew, do you have any comments about that report?
I can just point out, so yeah, they'll essentially just do an evaluation of the existing system, which hasn't been done. Documentation is limited within the office. So unlike the sanitary system, we don't have any kind of mapping. And then of course there'll be an evaluation with video inspection, and then they'll identify future development opportunities and make sure we, again, like the sanitary study and the water study, we plan for the future. And then of course all this is necessary because of the new old regulation 588.17, where you have to have a condition assessment study performed on core infrastructure by July 1st, 2021.
Oh, okay. I move it.
Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Morris, did you have a question?
Yeah, Andrew, are they started already? They're in town doing sewer work right now.
The sanitary sewer work is well underway. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, they had the road blocked off. That's why I remember seeing the truck.
But
Yeah.
this is storm sewer.
This is
Yeah,
storm.
this is storm now you want to do.
That's correct.
Now
Yep.
it's, okay.
They're on their way with the other,
With the
Inspection.
sanitary. That's correct. Yep. That's strictly sanitary.
okay. All right, all in favor of that? That is carried. And we are moving on to 14A, which is the committee and other minutes, and all we have is the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting of October 14th. Councillor White, did you have anything you wanted to highlight from those minutes?
Well, just that there was some discussion about really doing some renovations at the Bluebird Parkette. And so which the Horticultural Club would like to do. So they have some plans. They're actually working with our people to bring those forward, and I think we'll be taking one more look at those before they're done. So yeah.
Okay, great. And will that include removing and repositioning the sign that's there?
There was some discussion on that. Yes, that
Great.
was an ask that they would like. So
Okay, because it's not working currently anyway, and I think it would be a great place to put it in front of the new build.
Well, it just blocks the clock tower. I don't understand
Yep.
why.
Yeah.
yeah. So
Nobody seems to know who decided to put it there.
no. And there was
Council decided.
yeah.
Council decided to put it there.
Well, it was before my time anyway.
A previous council decided to put it there.
Uptown,
Yeah.
and where else uptown are you gonna put it?
There was also discussion that the resilience cube from Lambton College should be maybe removed and placed over at the Carnegie Library as well.
And
Out
that
front.
little tower was supposed to come down when the sign went there, but it never did get down.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't know that.
Neither did
I
I.
didn't know that either.
But that's the whole design of the park, wasn't it, with the clock tower?
When it first went up there,
Yeah.
but the clock never worked in it for how many years?
A while.
Like Back to the Future. Save
Yeah.
the clock
We need
tower.
we need a
Okay.
thunderstorm.
All right, council, we are losing it here. All right, we need a motion to receive and file those minutes. Moved by Councillor Mitchell, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. Is there any new business? I don't think so. So we're gonna go into closed meeting session. So any staff that doesn't need to be here, we can thank you guys very much for joining us tonight. And we do need a motion to go into in camera, moved by Councillor Westgate, seconded by Councillor Mitchell. All in favor? That is carried. So for those watching on YouTube, we will be returning to open session, but we will not be coming back online. So thank you for joining us tonight, and have